Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining. Well, after years of talking about buying a home in Italy, this year we've gone and done it. We bought our dream home in the region of Abruzzo, near the Adriatic Ocean. Last year, Italy saw a 20% increase in foreigners buying property here, and it's become the number one destination. And now I've joined that group. So for anyone considering doing the same thing, I've put this video together to give you an insight into the process we went through buying a house through a real estate agent, Agenzia Immobiliare. Buying a property here can be a daunting experience, especially when you live in another country and you've watched videos of people who have had bad experiences, or even brokers, buying advocates telling you how difficult it can be. You need to use us. Obviously, they want you to use them because they charge around 8% for their services on top of the agent's fee, which I'll explain further in this video. Overall, it wasn't that hard. The only difficulty was the lack of English spoken by agents. So it's helpful if you can speak Italian or have someone with you who does. And in my case, I spoke enough Italian to get by because none of the agents we dealt with spoke English or very little. Maybe that has something to do with the locations we visited, who knows. But most of the agents were quite responsive to my emails and messages, though there were a few who didn't bother to respond. Maybe that's just the way they do things here. Who knows? Depending on where you want to buy, you may need to seek further advice on the process. This video is based on our experience. So when it comes to buying a property in Italy, the laws are quite strict, where an agent can't sell you a property with illegal structures, modifications, or without the necessary permits, and the cadastral record, the Visade Catastale, supplied during the pre-purchase process must match up to the official floor plan and the house itself. So in our case, we found the house in a historic town. After viewing it a few times and even lucky enough to have a local builder who was in the area at the time we were viewing to take a look at the house, to give us his opinion on the structure, we decided then to make a formal offer. When it comes time to make that formal offer, remember, don't feel pressured to make the offer at or near the asking price. There's always room to negotiate. I believe there's anywhere from 10 to 30% negotiating room from the listed price. And for us, it was about 18%. Even before I made the offer, I discussed it with the agent to get a sense of whether it was even in the price range. I didn't want to waste anyone's time, and especially mine. I even made it clear that I was considering other properties and wanted them to discuss my proposed offer with the seller, the venditore, before submitting it formally. Even though most agents would suggest not doing this, it can be extremely helpful, and for us it worked quite well. So the process was now to put the formal offer in writing, called a proposta di acquisito. Important thing to remember, the contract is in Italian. In the contract, we included our details, Italian tax code, Codice Fiscale. Without that, you can't do anything. So I suggest getting that all sorted before you come here. The offered price, settlement period and date, and one of the most important things to note is any special conditions you want to include in the contract. Now, that can be anything from compliance, subject to finance, removing any rubbish, fixtures you don't want, remembering most houses here don't come with a kitchen, and so on. The Italians love their kitchen. So what they'll do, they'll take it with them to the next house, and it's very common. Once all the paperwork is filled out, you need to pay the deposit, the carpetta confermatore. Unless you pay the deposit at the time of making the formal offer, the agent can't put the offer forward to the seller. The deposit can vary in price. I negotiated 5%, so not the 20, 30% that's mentioned. You hear people saying. The agent informed me that in Italy, the seller also has up to 30 days to agree on the price or negotiate. Any later than the 30 days, the contract becomes invalid. In regards to the deposit, if the seller pulls out of the sale, they have to pay the buyer double the deposit paid. So if I left 30,000 euros, they have to pay me 60,000 euro. If I pull out of the sale, I lose my deposit and have to pay 90% of the agent's fee, which is 4% plus IVA tax at 22% of the purchase price. At 4%, That's why they push hard for the sale. I tried to negotiate the agent's fee, but unfortunately, no luck. They told me in some places it's even more. In regards to the 30 days, I pushed for a sooner outcome of 7 days. Again, I indicated I was leaving town and looking at other properties. Obviously, there was no guarantees this would work, but at least I put some urgency on the seller. And sure enough, it worked so well that we had a signed contract in 3 days without any negotiating. Once accepted by the seller, the offer becomes legally binding. Preliminary contract, compromiso. Another thing to keep in mind when doing your costings is to allow for the registration tax, the imposta de registro, which is 9% of the cadastral value. But if you apply as a first home buyer, it's only 2% of the cadastral value. If you do pay the 2%, you have 18 months to rectify it if you don't qualify as a first home buyer. And then you just have to pay the additional 7% tax. These figures are also indicated on the contract, so you know exactly what you'll have to pay. About 2 weeks after signing the contract, the agent registered it with the tax department, Agenzia Entrate, and we paid a portion of the cadastral tax, imposta catastale, which was €200 for the application fee, 0.5% for the deposit paid, which gets deducted from the balance of the registration tax owing, imposta do registro, plus some stamp fees. Once that's all done and registered, I have to pay the agent's fee. Not like here where it's paid at settlement, they get it prior. Now everything is official and done. We have to wait for the settlement day. In the meantime, we'll engage a notaire to do all the legal documents. I'll get translated into English by them, at a cost of course, though remembering if anything goes wrong, they'll always revert to the Italian contract. A few days before settlement, we'll fly back to Italy to finalise the settlement and sign the final deed called the rogito, also known as lato. And due to Italian laws, we have to be here to sign, and we'll get the keys on the same day to our dream house. We also plan to get the house renovated early next year, so stay tuned for that video. It'll be exciting. I did also want to mention that it's helpful if you open an Italian bank account. You can check my other video on how to open a bank account as a foreigner. That just will make life a lot easier for you. So there you have it. I hope this video helped clear up any questions you have and provide some helpful guidance. If you still have any questions, please drop me a message. And as always, thanks for watching. Until next time, ciao for now.